What's up, guys? Welcome to the Blue Collar Revolution podcast. Today's guest is Matt Sheley. He's an Air Force veteran and the Academy lead at the Sioux City Academy of Engineering and Construction. Today, we're talking about trade school versus college, what it's like to be a high school teacher right now, and the effects of the Blue Collar Tour. Let's go check it out. Matt Sheley, thank you for being on the show, man. This is really cool to have you here. And first of all, from all of us at the Blue Collar Revolution and Western Welding Academy, just wanted to say thank you for your service.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate it, but I promise you the pleasure and the honor is mine.
You betcha. Cool. So yeah, let's just jump right into it, man. What are some of the students' biggest misconceptions when it comes to like the blue collar trades and welding in specific?
I, from what I see at my level, it's probably pretty consistent with everywhere else. There was a lot of publicity back in the day, like, hey, if you go to college, you're going to make $1 million more than if you don't. And anymore, I think people are starting to wake up to the reality that's just not true. But it's still out there, where we're at and who I'm working with. I mean, 75% of our students are pretty low income, and parents just want the best for their kids, and they want their kids to have something better than they had, and they think that college is a requirement for that, and it's just false.
Right, right. Yeah, it seems like for the past 30 years, we've just been fed, just like you were saying, you got to go to college to be successful. There's,
Yep.
if you don't, you're a degenerate, even to the point where it's almost like the parents are embarrassed to say, "Oh,
Yeah, dude.
what is your kid doing? Is he going to college?" No, he's not. Or they'll kind of be like, "Oh, he's thinking about it." They're almost embarrassed to say that they're not going to college.
It's a fact, man. It really is. That actually, like, and I know we'll jump into this in a little bit, but that was what pushed me into education. I was blue collar through and through. My uncle was a welder. I grew up with my grandpa. He drove trucks. So I've been driving truck and doing dirt work since I was a little kid, and I just wanted to press on with that. Well, we hit like junior year in high school, we got to make this 4-year plan and write this big paper about it. And they're like, well, you really ought to give college a thought. And they kept pushing it, kept pushing it. And it was to a point where it was like, yeah, you're embarrassed to be in a classroom with your peers and be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to college. And when I felt that and I embodied that, I'm like, dude, we got to put more assets here for the guys that are going to go put this nation back to where it should be at that level and get them early on. And I think that's a big struggle that we're seeing now. We're probably a decade on the backside of that. You said 30 years. Well, dude, we're starting to see that shortage, and it's real, and it's everywhere, and it affects everybody. I mean, your AC goes down, you start making phone calls, you're going to realize it pretty quick that dude, we're in a problem, and that problem was started 30 years ago, and I'm glad that we caught it when we did. But dude, we're still on the back hill slide.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot longer to rebuild a bridge that was torched.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I have heard things. We were actually reached out to by the Navy for when they saw what we're doing with the blue collar tour and
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff. And they, this was 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a message just on Instagram. This guy from Build Submarines or Blue Forge Alliance, and he
yeah.
said, "Hey, I love what you guys are doing. I just caught you on social media, and right now in the United States, this was a few years ago, we're under a national security threat for the lack of blue collar workers, and we need to do whatever we can to try to rebuild this whole generational
Yeah.
mindset and narrative that has been created. So we want to be involved." He said they need to build 3 submarines a year for the next 10 years, and they're 100,000 blue collar workers short. Fast
Yeah.
forward to now, I just heard another stat from them. They're 140,000 blue collar workers short. So there is a real thing going on, and I don't think a lot of people understand it. And to go back to the college narrative, I don't want to sit here and say, hey, college is useless. And
Right, right.
it is not, like they say, it's not for everyone. I mean, that is definitely true. If you
Yeah,
if a kid is watching this out here and he's not really into sitting in class and he kind of gets a little stir crazy and he'd much rather be out in the shop or doing stuff with his hands, then I would really reconsider going to college because it's going to be a whole heck of a lot more out there when you are going to college. Now, you got to go to be a doctor and all these things, and we need all those people, but right now, if it's not a thing for you and you're not really interested in that, I would highly, highly suggest moving into the trades if you like working with your hands.
yeah. Dude, I hear all the time. Like, I was just talking to a couple kids today. They're like, "Yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know if college is for me." Well, we go to this college fair. We have this huge college and career fair here. Yeah, there's no blue collar dudes. They're not here. They're not because they're busy working, man. They're too busy, right? And it's almost like a double negative. But I think where I start out in that conversation is like with parents or with students. Okay, cool. Well, you want to be successful. That's your answer. What do you want to do? Well, I want to be successful. Define that.
Right.
What does that actually look like? Define that because college might not be necessary. And truthfully, if I'm being black and white honest, if a kid's like, "Hey, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to make sure I'm successful. I'm doing something that I enjoy." Dude, my recommendation is join the military, man. Join the
Mm,
military. My wife enlisted fresh out of high school, and she's still in. She's still active right now. I enlisted pretty late in life. I was 25 when I enlisted. I went in as a civil engineer, so I was a structural person. I mean, that's what I did. It was welding and anything to do with any Air Force base minus plumbing, electrical, HVAC. That's what we did. Um, and I witnessed, coming from a person that already had a 4-year degree, I already had a master's degree. What I witnessed was a bunch of young 18-year-old kids getting to try something for free, essentially. I mean, they're getting paid to try something out. And if they don't like it, cool, I'm going to switch over to this thing. And
mhm.
it never slows down that career progression. The other side of the coin is if I go to college for 4 years, I still have zero work experience.
Right.
If I join the military and spend 4 years and get a college degree out of that, now I've got a college degree and 4 years work experience. Those two are not the same thing.
Mm,
So there's some huge advantages there, and I get it. Just like college, the military ain't for everybody. We got unions, we've got apprenticeship programs, we got a million other different things. Why is college the only thing that everybody knows?
right.
It don't make sense.
Right. Yeah. And especially if there's trade schools out there that are, example, Western Welding Academy, it's
Yeah,
6 months.
I
And
got a kid there right now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the deal. Like we came by on the blue collar tour to you guys last year, and
Yep.
you know, coming through and I remember you talking about like the ripple effect, right? So
Yeah.
while, the
Yeah.
blue collar tour, that event for 4 hours of that day, what type of ripples did that make, you know, um, in your class? Did you see any examples of that? Like anything that
Oh,
just
dude.
sparked and all of a sudden this kid is doing this and blah blah blah, and then it's just kind of building out.
It went pretty crazy immediately after. So weird thing, that like I talked about my junior year, I'm like, all right, well, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna come back to my home school and I'm gonna take this thing over. I'm gonna make it something great. The year that y'all rolled in was the first year that I was actually in that role. It just took me that long to get where I wanted to be. And since then, dude, I tore the classroom out, made the classroom additional lab space. Right now, we're building 15 booths. So last year we had 12. I'll have 22 booths this year, all set with stick and TIG welders. All the MIG welders are sitting outside about ready to get sold. From a physical perspective and from a community perspective, it was a big deal. Some really cool stories that came out of it. I've got a young man, Andrew Warner's his name. He come out of Michigan and he was actually in Michigan, just graduated from a tech school up there, welding school, and he was struggling to find work. So he had a bunch of, I think he said he had 120 applications out on like Indeed or some online thing, and he was struggling to find work. Well, a friend of mine, a high school buddy of mine, his parents retired and moved up there. I haven't seen him in 7 years. Well, they happened to catch that video on the news. So they send this kid my phone number and they're like, hey, give this guy a call. I bet he could help you out. He calls me and I'm like, hey, dude, if you're serious, it was I think it was a Sunday evening. He calls me. I'm like, if I were you and I'm as serious as you say you are, I'm packing my bags. I'm headed south. I'm like, you get down here, I'll find you a place to stay. We'll start walking around. Like, you'll have a job by the end of the week. It's not a question. Dude, the kid packed his bags, loaded his car full, headed south, like 8, 9 hours or something like that. Rolls into town. I meet him. We have a bite to eat. I go through my list of guys that I know locally. He's got a job 2 days, and he's still here. Like, I've been helping him. He's getting into deer hunting, and going from Michigan to Iowa. It's like the grand finale of deer hunting for him. So I've been getting him into that. But he's welding sanitary stainless every day. Loves what he's doing. He's getting excited about it. He's been coming back. They'll get off at noon or whatever schedule they got going on. He'll buzz up to the high school, hang out with my kids, weld with them in the booth for a little bit. I mean, that kid's he's fired up. He's passionate about it, and that little bit just pushes and pushes and pushes. I mean, what this thing turns into in 10 years, I don't know, but I've seen what it's done in 10 months.
Wow. Wow. That's really cool to hear, man. I mean, it's just kind of a testament to doing things different and just
Yeah,
shaking stuff up and being a mover and a shaker. And now that's a pretty great opportunity for your students to see someone that's out in the industry doing it, and then he's
yeah,
coming back to he can talk and he can mentor and hey,
yeah,
here's what it's like. Hey, it might not be for you, kid. This stuff is hard. Or for that kid that's like, it's hard, I want in, let's do this.
yeah, for sure, right? For sure. It's dude, there's more happening than I could even identify. Like, just in the community, I have a kid out in Wyoming right now. I got one kid in Gillette, at Western Welding. He's learning all sorts of stuff and rocking and rolling. He's coming back, giving us some pretty dang good insight. Just teaching me what he's learning out there.
Right.
Um, and kids are starting to see. One thing that I've always believed in, like from an educational perspective, is you got to teach to who you are. Like, if you're trying to be this big, hard, tough guy and you're not, that's not who you are. Kids see right through it, man. They are really, really good at smelling between the lines. Um, and they're walking around and they're getting ready to build their future for the rest of their life. They're putting pieces together. They're starting to see some holes in the ships that they're getting, boarded onto, I guess. And I don't know that it's not a negative, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but most of people in public education, they just know the college route. Like, that's their life and that's all that they've seen. So until we start bringing dudes back into education that have been in the industry, it's really hard to rewrite that script. So I have to be somebody that's a little bit abrasive and shake things up a little bit. uh, I believe you can't ignore intensity. So I'm a pretty intense guy, and I go to the college career fairs and I ask these questions. Kids will go meet with recruiters and they're doing their own legwork to find their own path, but they are seeing through the narrative, if that makes sense. And that was a lot of what was sparked by Western Welding being here at the Blue Collar Tour. I think that event, when we had every big wig in administration in our building was there, and they walked by and they saw something that they couldn't quite explain. And you talk about, that kid that can't sit down in class. Dude, that was me. I got expelled from this middle school that I'm currently teaching at by teachers that are currently in the building. Like, they know who I was. And idle hands are the devil's playground, baby. And the guys that I have in my room that kind of walk around the world with a little chip on their shoulder, they're the ones that are crazy effective out in the lab. They're the ones that are going to start companies and they're going to do things right, and they're going to build their own path, forge their own future. And all these dudes that have problems in all these classes are locked in. and they're focused on what's going on. And it allowed people that only see that kid for a discipline incident to see them in a different environment, to recognize that, okay, yeah, I see that, yes, there is something going on here. There is a place for these folks, and there's a need, right? Like there
Mhm.
is a need, man.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Have you seen any sort of or heard from any teachers say a kid didn't really know about welding or any sort of or trade program at the high school, and he comes into the welding program and all these teachers have kind of wrote him off a little bit, and all of a sudden he found his passion or he found his niche right there, and then all of a sudden he's doing well in all of his other classes. There any sort of circumstances out there like that that you've heard of?
But that was me. Like that was me all the way through like middle school, man. I was very intelligent, and I get things figured out pretty quick. If they expected it to take us 30 minutes, it took me 10 or 12. And then I'm getting into trouble with the rest of that amount of time, right? And I was expelled from eighth grade. I got an extra 2 weeks on my summer vacation. Came back into middle or into high school, and first thing I enrolled in was welding. Took that as a freshman, and it was like, okay, well, if I don't have C's or above, like I don't get to do this.
Mhm.
So for me, that was kind of that driving factor that straightened things out. We do have an off-school program. GTL, Gateway to Learning, is what it's called, and those are kids that couldn't handle for a various array of reasons, right? But they struggled in just general education. We've had a lot of those students come in and they jump in, and we're very blessed and very fortunate that we have an incredible construction program. We have a really solid welding program too. So they'll kind of pick which side of that road they want to jump into, and dude, they take off. The person that you call when things are not good is a very strong individual that's going to wake up at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever, and roll up and get things fixed and take care of you. Uh, that takes a certain mindset. It takes a certain person. And yeah, I listen to a lot of different guys in the military, and they talk about sheep, and then there's sheepdogs. And it kind of takes somebody with a little bit of that chip on their shoulder. Like if you are the kind of person that can sit down in a room and read a book for 4 hours, this might not be it for you. It's
Right.
just different. It just takes different kind of people, man.
Mhm.
But we see it, and I see it on the coaching side of it too. Whether it's football or we have a trap team here too that I run. Yeah, it's most of my kids are that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we've been tracking data really, really close. I'm excited this year because we've been doing some work with data explicitly focused in on like attendance rates and some other things. Well, every single event that we put on and that we do, anything that's extra or above what our defined curriculum is, we require perfect attendance, and we require a C average. Like you have to have C's and above, period, or
Mhm.
you're not going. You want to be on the welding team? That's what it takes. You want to go to the BCT? That's what it takes. So we started to increase these standards. And once that little passion, that little spark gets ignited, I mean, it's pretty universal that it seems to make one heck of a difference. And it's just common sense, right? It's not, I'm not a psychologist. It just makes sense.
Right. Right. Yeah. Like, what are some things that you have used to try to motivate the kids in class or about the trades? Is there anything that you have seen that kind of works out that you can kind of see that spark on what you do in a day to day in the classroom?
There's not one explicit item that really seems to make a big difference. But to me, it's just dipping the toe in. Let them see it a little bit in a different perspective too. Like that blue collar tour, that was the our numbers went through the roof. So that mattered. right? I mean, through the roof, like I could have filled another 4 classes with students that signed up for welding, and I'm like, where did this come from? So currently, right now, I can max out at 24 kids per class, 4 classes a day, and then we run an alternating schedule, A B day. So me personally, I have 105 students every day, and then there's another 18 that another teacher teaches. So like, dude, we're maxed out.
Right.
Um, and it's a good problem to have. It
That's
really
so
is. But
cool.
man, let them see it. Let them feel it. Let them experience that a little bit, and then talk the reality and bring those facts in. And I think that's a huge piece that a lot of people don't understand either. Um, Dude, what kind of money are these guys making? What does it look like? What's that career pathway look like? There's a ton of different solutions to that question. Like I said, dude, you can weld in the military. You want to go to college and take it to another level, go do that. You want to go to work, go to work. There's a lot more people that fit into this area than was previously assumed.
Hmm.
So giving them the opportunity to see what we do in an event like BCT, it was big. I would have to imagine we're not the outlier there. I mean, are y'all seeing that pretty unanimous across the other schools?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've heard that from several schools. Like, oh, we had 18 kids in our welding class, and now there's 70 on a waiting list.
Yeah, right.
We don't have the facilities, and it creates that buzz around too in the smaller communities and stuff like that. Maybe they didn't really know the demand. Blue collar tour comes through, and you see the excitement from the kids and the demand, and then you're hearing about, oh, we got funding for a few $1 million to build a new facility for welding or for,
Yeah,
any of the trade
yeah.
type of stuff. So we've heard a lot of those stories. And I mean, honestly, it makes me almost tear up a little bit because it's like we're doing some real stuff out here. You know what I mean? It's yeah. There's been a lot of cases like that. So as we grow, it'll just be more and more. And like you said, the ripple effect, it starts at those little schools and then hopefully it just kind of keeps branching out. We're changing the narrative one day at a time.
Amen, brother.
So how do you address parents' concerns? I'm like we talked about before, they're almost embarrassed about their kids not going to college. Is there any conversations that you have with parents around that?
I like to start out, man, with define success. So, how are you going to define success for your child? Number one. Then ask the kid the same question. Are they on the same page with that?
Mm,
Right. One thing that I bring up a lot to the parents, I'm like, who do you want your kid to be? Put that before what you want your kid to be. And then remember that it's yeah, your parents, right? But in a couple years, man, a man will leave his mother and father, join with his wife, and create their own.
mhm.
So it's almost the kids are never going to forget that respect. But the biggest problem that I see with not problem, but the barrier, very similar to what you're talking about, is they just feel like this need, like, hey, I want my kid to be successful. I want to be the best that I can do. And it's like a lot of parents and dude, it might ruffle some feathers, but I think a lot of parents are expecting colleges to raise their kids for them.
Mm,
And it's a
100%.
safety net. Like, hey, I want my kid to have the best in life, and I don't know if I'm doing the best job, but hey, this college over here says they're going to do great things with them. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's the hook I'm going to hang my hat on.
Right. For 50K a year.
Yeah, right, dude. I mean, I went half ride scholarship to a basic state school. My first year was 32 grand. And I paid for everything after that out of pocket. And I woke up, dude. I got a little brother, and you know that rivalry. I got a little brother. He is 5 years in school behind me. So he's welding first year out of school. I'm teaching first year out of school. The dude doubles my income. That's the first time my little brother's ever beat me, and I'm mad. I'm big mad. Like, I'm not little mad. I'm talking that entire summer. I was in a semi for like 100 hours a week trucking just to he ain't beating me this year.
Chip on the shoulder.
Dude, I was like fired up, and I knew the whole time what I was doing was bigger than myself. But dude, that's a hard pill to swallow. I made $34,000 my first year out of education. I made 30 grand that summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I come back into education, and dude, I'll never forget this. Like, this is my second year back in my hometown school, and I've been in education for 4 years. And I'm talking to my kids, and I show them some checks, and we're in August. I'm just coming off of a summer of working hard, and I'm showing them $10,000 in a week, and they're like, "What?" And then they go and they tell their English teacher, and their English teacher straight up tells them like, "No way, like this ain't real." So I'm taking the checks to her, and I'm like, "Hey, this is real, right?" Like I respect the fact that you know your road and you know what success looks like for you. Don't define it for them. You let them find their own success. That's your role as an educator, and that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it doesn't take a lot, you know. I saw in some of your other podcasts y'all talking about mentors, and I push kids as hard as I can to walk their own path, right? So if a kid comes in, they're like, "Yeah, I want to be a machinist." Okay, cool. Are you working? Yeah, where are you working at? I'm working at Hardee's. All right, hey, I ain't knocking on Hardee's, but that doesn't seem to me to be able to line you up with where you're trying to go. And this is honestly kind of a shout out to all the business owners around that are like, "Hey, I need help." Well, man, you can't pay a kid $8 an hour. Like, you have to be a little bit competitive wage. I know that's tough from a business owner perspective. And granted, I'm speaking from not owning a business myself. However, man, you got to compete. If you're looking for these kids, a lot of them are chasing a dollar. But I do try to explain to kids, listen, I wanted to either drive truck, do dirt work, or weld. Those were my three things when I'm sitting there as a sophomore. So that's what I went and did. I just went to a couple diesel shops. I'm like, "Hey, y'all need somebody to empty the garbage? Like, I can turn wrenches. I know how to drop a transmission. I can do brakes. Like, I know a little bit, and I'm willing to learn." Um, when I started off, and there you go. I'm sweeping dirt off the floor, and then that turned into, "Hey kid, give me a hand doing this. Hey kid, give me a hand doing that. You can weld? Hey, go weld that. Go do this." And it really just started putting tools in my toolbox and lined me up. Not only that, but you're starting to meet people that are in the industry that you're hoping to go into.
Mm-hmm.
So I really work hard to get kids in that direction. The tough part with the trades is a lot of them have to be 18. So you're working on trying to get people in the door that can't be in the door yet. How do you do that? And it's tricky. So what I'm trying to do is get people into our building as much as I can, and let kids meet these different folks. And then make sure that I'm handing kids off to people that are right for them. I had a former student, good kid, D lineman. Him and I were pretty good buddies. Got along great, but this young man, he wants to weld, and he wants to do stainless. He wants to do stainless TIG, and that's all he wants to do. And he's not going to go to school to do it. I'm like, cool. So we're going to learn as much as we can here, and then I'm going to line you up with some guys that I know and trust through the racing community. You meet a lot of welders, man. And that's often what he did. And then a couple years later, I'm driving through town. Here comes this fancy dancy, flashy welding rig, and sure enough, there he is, Bubba. Call him up. We go eat lunch, or craziest thing that ever happened. Dude invited me to church one day. I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'll go to church with you." But um, that's that's one tough thing to try to navigate. How do we get these kids trying the stuff out when they're young and eager?
Mm-hmm.
By the time they're 19 years old, you're probably too late to light that spark. Somebody's already put something in their head, and they think that that's their route. Um, yeah, what you guys are doing has been the best thing that I've found to really, really catapult things. And it's nice too, coming from an outside source, man. It's a third party. The only skin you guys got in the game is a love for the country, right? You're not trying to sway them one way or another, and you keep it real, and you try to be honest with them, and they see that. They know. I mean, I got kids right now, they should be in class, right? And
Yep.
they're over here hanging out, man, because this is what they're passionate about and this is what they want to do. And they soak up every second that they can get.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How's it going, fellas?
Good, good.
Good, good. So yeah, I think to go back to just kind of getting started out, and yeah, I wish I had an answer for getting them experience while they're in school. I did hear a guy, I think he owns, is it Turner Mining or something? They're like a contract mining company. They have a
Okay.
big fleet and they've grown significantly over the last like 8 years. And he was saying that how how he got started was he just went in to I think it was like a yard or something that did some dirt work, and he was just like, "Hey, I'm gonna come in and work for free for 7 days and I'll just sweep. I'll do whatever you need me to do. At the end of that 7 days, if you feel like you're like, hey, I'm a good fit, then you hire me. If not, no big deal. But when you come in for that 7 days, you better bring the heat. And that's how you get that experience. Like it's a very low barrier of entry for someone to come, try you out, try it before you buy it. I thought that that was such good advice, especially, if you're at parties or whatever, you want to do this thing, go find someone that's doing something similar or that you can kind of see that would put you on track
Yeah.
to get some base level skills to go into that. Go do it for free. You need experience right now.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. Yep.
especially if you're living at home and you don't have bills to pay and kids and all that stuff. You get out there and you have a couple of tie downs, it might be a little different story. But yeah, if you're young right now, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And that is golden advice. I mean, it really is.
Oh,
There was just a processor here, and they do a ton of different thing with different beef byproduct, but they had an internship program, and the owner's a local guy, multimillionaire, and all they had these kids doing was sweep and emptying garbages. And there was one kid out of about four that was thankful to be there and had the right attitude and showed up every day. And that guy was six figures pretty quick.
mm.
I mean, yeah, yeah. So I'll use what you just told me. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I look back kind of earlier time. So I was working stonemasonry. This was probably 10, 15 years ago, something like that. Really tough work. You're in the
Yep.
mountains of Montana and it's cold and you're sore every night, your boots are wet, and you got to get up and do it every day. And at the start, I was just hod carrying. And what I noticed was kind of looking back on it. So I got moved up from hodding in about a month and a half to laying stone, right? So, and I look back and the other hod carriers that didn't happen with anyone else. And kind of looking back, it was first I did work my butt off, like super, super hard. No, just it was go time. But I had a killer attitude that went along with that.
Oh, dude.
And that seemed to be, this is brutal work. It was not fun, but always joking around, always had a smile on my face. And that's what I kind of noticed. Oh, that two mixture, work ethic and a positive attitude and showing up to work and, saying what you're gonna do, that's some pretty key stuff that's gonna move you, through to the next level. So yeah, I mean, you could be a great worker and you could have the best skills, but if you're just crappy to be around, you're probably not going to last too long.
Dude, your attitude determines your altitude.
Mm.
And they preached that to us, dude. And it was the most real thing. And I think that's why you see such a brotherhood within the military. So those guys get to go through all the hard days and come out of it and just be there for each other and have that positive attitude. But dude, you ain't a kidding, man. A lot of things that we hear from employers locally is they're like, man, we care more about who you are than what you know. I can teach you anything, respect and on that list. You know what I mean? I can't teach you to show up on time every day. That's just you. You got to do those things. So we talk about the things that require zero talent, soft skills. And you got to bring those to the table. And dude, our kids, we're just a special breed. The Midwest is known for work ethic, and it's real here. We're heavy immigrants, and it's just a matter of when they immigrated. You know, myself, I'm Irish, and we immigrated too. We was just working on the railroad. This is how far we went with it. I got a lot of Hispanics, and dude, it's just a hardworking community. That's why this is home to me. We're never missing out on that work ethic, but tying the rest of those pieces together and then get off the dadgum phone. That's part two of that. Holy Toledo. Our school this year, for the first time, they outlawed them. So kids
Really?
walk in the door, dude, they got to rack that phone. They got to rack that phone up and get into class and learn something. And what a blessing that has been to our kids. Seeing them sit and chat and visit with each other, dude, they didn't do that 2 years ago when everybody had a phone. They just sat there scrolling, doom scrolling for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm like, I don't need to learn that. I can pull it up on my phone. Yeah, until the power goes out and you can't charge that thing back up. Then what?
Right. I bet the data behind that, if you guys are getting more into the,
Ooh.
that would be super interesting to look back
Yeah,
on, you know,
yeah.
monitor that. I bet it's probably alarming how
Oh,
the change is.
yeah. We're seeing some crazy numbers. A lot of positive stuff, mostly associated with attendance and then that CD average, keeping everybody season aboves. But it's tough too because high school is tied down and handcuffed to whatever the state wants to look at,
Mm.
right? You know, that picture of a graduate as defined by the state, here's what you're going to do. And that doesn't always fit into the reality of what society needs. Um, we've come a long way, truthfully. I've been in education. This is my 10th year. We've come a long way and we're making things in the right direction. We're actually launching our academies this year. This is a new thing for us. So I got my fancy dancy business cards, you know.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and it's just more of a focus. So our freshmen this year will select which academy they're going to be in. It's very likely the majority are going to pick the Academy of Construction Engineering. They said that that sounded better than construction engineering and welding, so that's what it became. But they will get to select what it is that they want to do, and then all of the your standard run of the mill classes, your math, your English, that's all supposed to have a taste of what we're doing. So it's going to be like bid proposals, reading, estimates, plans, um, more things that are geared towards what these kids are able to utilize after high school. If this is legit the route that they're on, and it should create buy-in. It really should. The tough part is, we don't have space. I wish I had a freshman exploratory class. We will open it up for them to jump into the BCT, and that'll be about the only experience they get with what we're doing over here. Um, and I know you guys know this, but until you get to feel it and actually experience it, it's way different than just reading about it or thinking about it. It changes that environment, changes that perspective. So I think we'll be pretty heavy. Loaded into it. We ran a summer class for the first time in history. Our construction kids built a concession stand out at the football stadium. So we work a lot with Lightform. They're right here local. So they built this whole concession stand out of Lightform, and I'm running around like borrowing equipment from dudes, hanging trusses, and we got her whipped. But we're getting to do some pretty special things, and it's redefining what education is, and I think we need that. I think society shows we need a little bit of rewriting to come into to what we're doing. So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens.
That's killer, man. That's good to hear that you guys are making some moves in the right direction, just kind of
Yeah,
shaking stuff up. You know, it's
yeah.
you gotta change some stuff if it's not going in the right direction, you know. So let's switch gears a little bit and let me hear about how you grew up. You know, what was that like? Where did the blue collar trades come and fit into your life? Yeah, just kind of take us through that journey.
Oh man, so when I was young, my mom was a nurse, and she would get time and a half for working the ugly shifts, right? So it's like she worked every Christmas, she worked every weekend, she worked from 11 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. So I stayed with my grandpa and I lived with my grandpa my whole life. And he was either doing dirt work at the time or driving a semi, one of the two. He kind of bounced back and forth as an owner operator, doing what he wanted to do. Um, Early, I'm talking, I learned to drive when I was 4. I could shift through the gears on a semi by the age of 5. I drove a payloader 30 miles down I-29 at the age of 6. Like, that was just my childhood, and what better childhood to have? Not that it was good or bad, but dude, tell me one 6-year-old kid that don't want to go drive an excavator around. um, Whatever. So I remember being 9 years old. We were actually coming out to, we were taking a load of rebar to somewhere right near Gillette. I remember driving through Gillette, but we were taking a flatbed load of rebar out there. And here I am. I was in third grade, however old that is. We're in the plant, just got the load dropped on, and I jump out of the truck and I'm throwing straps and I'm tarping this load down. And the foreman comes out and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, kid! Like, no, dude, you need to stay in that semi." He's like, "You can't be inside." And I'm like, I got to get the load strapped. Here my grandpa's 70 some years old. Like, he ain't strapping this. That's my job. So I get back in the semi, I pull the semi out of the building and across the street, and I start strapping it down on my own. Dude, that guy's eyes was that big. Like, he didn't know what he just saw, but that was just normal, for me growing up. And that was my plan. That was my route. I was just gonna, as soon as I graduated high school, I'm taking off in that truck and I'm trucking. Well, my grandpa passed away when I was 14. And right before he passed away, he bought me a race car. That was the one thing that we always did together. We always went to those races. We made it home to go to the dirt track circle stuff. And so he buys me a race car at 14. And, that was, I didn't have a dad at home. It was just mom and grandpa. So he was my world, dude, as a little guy growing up. And that was how I maintained that connection with him. And dude, I was terrible, man. Like, I'm talking, my car was like this bright blue from Bomb Guards, tractor paint, rolling it with a 3-inch roller. I painted the entire wall blue on the racetrack from one end to the other. And I just dedicated myself and committed to that as my thing. And it took me my senior year, so 18, I end up winning, and they're still sitting up there.
Oh,
I won a track championship, won a state championship, finished 14th in the nation, and that was in 4 years. And I did that in a car that I built. I mean, I'm jigging my own rear ends. We're welding everything back together. We built our own engines. We built our own transmissions. Everything possibly that I could build, I built, dude, because I'm dirt floor poor, like working at the diesel shop trying to pay for this thing. So that to me was what cut my teeth into welding as a profession and as a craft. And I still don't consider myself a welder, more of a fabricator, but that got me through high school, kept me grounded, kept me out of trouble for the most part. And then kind of made that commitment to be a welding teacher, went to college at Wayne State here in Nebraska. There's only a couple shop teacher programs in the nation that I know of. And I ain't knocking, Wayne State by any means, but I go in and here's my welding class, and they're like, okay, you're going to read 18 chapters of this book, and then we're going to start on MIG. And I'm like, no, no, we're not. Like, here's a picture of the car I just won a championship with that I built. Here's the videos of me building it. I'm like, I'm testing out of this, but thank you. So I don't have any formal welding experience, and I'm not a great welder. I'm good enough, right? Good enough never is, but I've rolled a few cars, so you know it is.
good enough to save a life, right?
Yeah, baby. And I've had quite a few of those cars do very well, but um, got done with college and started teaching, and still felt a void in my life, and wanted to wait to join the military till I was back in South Sioux. I kind of didn't want that, held against me on an interview. So as soon as I got the job in South Sioux, um, I went ahead and enlisted in the Air Force. I went in as a structural engineer, and they sent us down to Biloxi, Mississippi, and we went through all the same training that I've been doing my whole life. And a lot of it was like, dude, Biloxi, Mississippi in the summer in a welding shop, boy, she's
Huh.
toasty. So it was like, and we had dudes from all walks of life. There's this pretty boy prep kid from Massachusetts, and then there's my buddy. He's this like 7 foot tall black guy that weighs 300 pounds, just a stud athlete, cage fighter, and he's like in the booth next to me. Sheley, I can't get this rod to light. So we went through, got a lot of that stuff done, and that led me into where I'm at now. It gave me a unique perspective on the world, and now I'm a husband and a father of two little girls, and I'm still teaching every day. And dude, God's good, man. I love what I do, and I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
That's
So
awesome, man. That's a pretty killer story. Just a little
yeah,
bit of life experience mixed in there,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've done so many jobs. It's stupid. I was doing logging for a while in college, like axemen type stuff, climbing up the tree, up in the timber and milling. And I've laid block for a period of my life, dude. I had a newfound appreciation for those men. I thought I was a young strapping lad, and these guys are like 70 butter and blocks, setting it faster than I can carry it.
Forearm,
So,
just
oh,
five
dude.
forearms.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. And those guys, man, they're a unique breed. So I got in, I did quite a bit of welding throughout the years too, just random stuff here and there, mostly plant work. Um, yeah, it was I've lived a good life. I kind of looked at my wife the other day and I'm like, those videos when it's like the millionaire and they've got their yacht and they like break the bottle to christen it. I
Right.
went into my brand new shop the other day and turned the air conditioning on and it had the same effect, dude. Having an air conditioned shop was like, we did it, man. Everything else is icing on the cake. So I'm loving life and I'm not trying to knock education. This is coming from a dude. I got 4 degrees, but I still can walk out of everything I'm doing right now and double my salary next year. And I'm not going to pretend that that's not a fact.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, man, I tell you what, I think the nation and especially us here at, Blue Collar Revolution and Western Welding, we really appreciate what you are doing and, everyone kind of associated with you. And, we couldn't do it without you guys because we couldn't do what we do if you guys weren't putting in that base level of learning and the attitude and just trying to really create those values there in high school is such a huge thing on getting this whole movement going. So we from the bottom of our hearts we couldn't thank you guys enough.
hey, brother, one team, one fight, man.
Betcha, you betcha. Anything else that you want to add or say, Matt?
I just keep thinking back to like the dudes that were running around for World War II, and Uncle Sam needs you, and we might not be getting the homeland assaulted, but dude, I think we're in that dire of a situation. And I will look at society and what it is right now. And I look at my two little girls, one being 1 and one being 3. And I don't know that this change, revolution, if you will, but I think it's beautiful that you guys labeled it what it is. That's what it's going to take. It is what it's going to take in this country. Dude, the American dream is alive and well, and that is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We just got to keep that in perspective and keep marching forward and do what we can do. And I pray that we get done what we need to get done and the world presses on as it once was. Let's get this thing stood back up. Let's remember what makes the world turn around and let's keep things going in the right direction.
Heck yeah, Matt. Well, Matt, thank you so much, man. This has been a lot of fun and can't wait to do it again next time.
Hey man, it takes all of us, right? It takes all of us. Keep doing what y'all are doing. That's a real thing. Keep that content going. Those are things that I show my kids pretty regular. But I'm going to have to take off and run to a meeting. That's the boss right there. So,
Gotcha. Matt, thank you so much, man. Have a good one.
hey, likewise, brother. Appreciate you guys.
You betcha.
Peace.